The town of Weston-super-Mare in Somerset lies on the Bristol Channel, 18 miles southwest of Bristol. Weston comes from the Anglo-Saxon for the west ton or settlement, and super-mare is Latin for above sea. The mainly flat landscape of Weston is dominated by Worlbury Hill to the north, and Bleeden Hill, the River Axe and Breen Down to the south. The Tropicana was once a very popular lido on the beach, and although it has suffered years of neglect, it currently houses a fun fair and is being used as a venue for events and concerts. The Seaquarium is situated on its own unique pier. It showcases a range of freshwater, marine and tropical species from around the world, including a tropical reef zone with pufferfish, rainforest river zone with piranha, and an underwater ocean tunnel with sharks. The Weston donkeys are a traditional attraction on the sands. The family running the donkeys have been operating since 1886. The donkeys are well looked after and only work for around 7 months each year, with their holiday spent at local farms. I walked along Marine Parade, the main road along the seafront. Weston-super-Mare was one of our most regular holiday resorts when I was growing up in South Wales. It was one of the nearest seaside resorts to where we were living at the time, and it was always a nice place to come to. My family were really into their caravan holidays, and we used to come here a lot with the caravan, and then we used to spend the day here on the seafront, and particularly go and play on the amusements on the pier behind me. The Grand Pier is 400 metres long and supported by 600 iron piles. Building work began in November 1903 and it opened in June 1904. At the end of the pier was a 2,000-seat theatre used as a music hall and for opera, stage plays and ballet. The theatre was destroyed by fire in January 1930. The pier was then sold and reopened 3 years later with a new pavilion, which housed a large undercover fun fair. New shops and an amusement arcade were added in the early 1970s. The pier became a Grade 2 listed building in 1974. It won the National Pier Society Pier of the Year Award in 2001. In January 2008, the pier was sold again and underwent a multi-million-pound revamp. However, in July of that same year, the pavilion was destroyed in a second fire. It was rebuilt at a cost of £39 million and reopened in October 2010. Due to the large tidal range in the Bristol Channel, the low tide mark in Weston Bay is about a mile from the seafront. Although the beach itself is sandy, low tide uncovers areas of thick mud, hence it often being called Weston-super-Mare. These mudflats are very dangerous to walk in, as the mud is very deep, and has frequently resulted in loss of life over the years. Drivers of vehicles on the beach have often been caught unaware, as they drive too close to the sea and break through the sand into the mud underneath, so are then stuck. Heading north, I continued along the seafront as I walked along Royal Parade. I could see the tide rising by this time. By 1996, I had been living and working in Bristol for 12 years, and that same year, Avon County Council, who I'd been working for all that time, was being abolished, and several new councils were being created in its place. So I chose to go to North Somerset, which was a new council with the headquarters based here in Weston. It was a good way of getting out of a job that I'd been stuck in for nearly 8 years, which was very much a dead-end job at the time. So coming to Weston, to the new North Somerset Council, was a good way of having a fresh start for me, as well as living in Weston. I soon came to Marine Lake, a small cove at the approach to Knightstone Island. It provides a safe location for families with small children, with a causeway between the lake and the sea. Nightstone Island once housed a theatre, swimming pool and sauna. After years of disrepair and dereliction, the area has been redeveloped into luxury apartments. From Nightstone, boat trips are available on the Waverley and Balmoral, as well as trips to Steepholm and Flatholm Islands, and short trips around Weston Bay. Walking from Nightstone, I crossed the causeway separating Marine Lake from the Bristol Channel. Eventually I reached Weston's oldest pier, Birnbeck Pier. It is the only pier in the country which links the mainland to an island, linking to Birnbeck Island, a 3-acre rocky island just to the west of Boilbury Hill. The Grade II listed pier was designed by Eugenius Birch and opened in 1867. The Gothic toll house and pier head buildings were designed by local architect Hans Price. The pier has been closed to the public since 1994 and is now on the Buildings at Risk register. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the pier was popular both with locals and tourists. As a boarding point for steamers pursuing their trade in the Bristol Channel, it went through various extensions and modifications over the years. After the Second World War, the number of visitors and steamer passengers dropped. The final excursion visited the pier in 1979. Since the closure of the pier, ownership has passed hands many times, and it has been subject to a series of proposals for its redevelopment, which have all been unsuccessful. The pier remains in a largely derelict state, and a section of the pier collapsed during storms in December 2015. The Birnbeck Regeneration Trust has been working hard to bring people together to restore and regenerate the pier. I only hope that one day very soon the necessary funds can be raised to save Birnbeck Pier before it disintegrates forever. Travelling 2 miles north of Weston, I came to Sand Bay, a long expanse of sand and shingle. Adjacent to the village of Cewstoke, Sand Bay is often referred to as Weston-super-Mare's hidden gem. It is the perfect place to visit with family and dogs, and is popular with both beachcombers and horse riders. The Sand Bay Tea Rooms near to the bus terminus welcomes visitors and serves good food, as well as the Commodore Hotel, where dogs are allowed in the bar. There is a Pontins holiday camp, originally opened in 1947, now under the ownership of Britannia Hotels. There are also several static caravan parks in the area. From Sand Bay I could see Birnbeck Pier and had clear views of the islands of Steepholm and Flatholm. So at the end of March 1996, Avon County Council was no more, and then I moved from Bristol here to Weston. And it was really exciting for me because I had a nice flat which was about a 2 to 3 minute walk from the seafront. So when I was going to start my new job, I knew I could walk along the seafront if I wanted to. At the northern end of Sand Bay, I climbed up a stepped path towards my next port of call. Sand Point is a peninsula stretching out from Middle Hope, a 208-acre biological and geological site of special scientific interest. On a clear day, the views over the Bristol Channel are fantastic. Reaching a triangulation pillar, I could see up the channel to Clevedon, the second Severn crossing, and across to South Wales. A line from here across to Lavernock Point in Wales marks the lower limit of the Severn estuary and the start of the Bristol Channel. So I started my new job in North Somerset Council on the 1st of April. And the first day I thought, oh my God, what have I gone and done? It was an absolutely horrible job, it really was. And I actually found that after a while it affected my social life. I actually became quite uncomfortable living in Weston because of the job. But I worked with some of the nicest people I've ever worked with. And if they weren't nice, it really would have been an awful job. Leaving Sand Bay, I travelled to the south end of Weston, to the last place I would visit today. The village of Uphill lies where the River Axe flows into the Bristol Channel, and was once a busy port. The Dolphin is one of 2 pubs in Uphill, and I remember coming here with friends from work during the time I lived in Weston. The village is dominated by a large hill, with the old church of St Nicholas standing on its top. The partially ruined church dates from around 1080 and consists of a tower, chancel and a roofless nave. It is a designated Grade 2 listed building in the care of the church's Conservation Trust, although the roofed portion is still occasionally used for services. The church stands on a cliff top overlooking Weston Bay, Brean Down and the mouth of the River Axe. I walked around and looked over the views before stopping to reflect once more on the awful job I had when I first moved to Weston. Well, I was in that horrible job for about 18 months before I finally got another job in North Somerset Council, which was so much better for me. It was a promotional job, but also, unlike the horrible job, I didn't feel that it compromised my social life. So I was able to live in Weston much more at ease. But as I said before, I did work with some really nice people, so that's one thing I will always remember about working for North Somerset. So overall, I worked for North Somerset Council for about 3.5 years. And then I eventually got a promotional job in Bristol City Council, and that's when I moved back to Bristol for 4 years before I moved up to Derbyshire where I am now. But when I look back, it's very interesting. I do wonder, had I not had that horrible job in Weston, whether I would have actually stayed here, because it is a nice place, so it's certainly worse places that I could have lived in my life.